Greetings, netizens. It's Bill. Today, I'm speaking about Sola Gratia, some related concepts, and what I would affirm therein. Sola Gratia, once again, is a Latin phrase for grace alone. The doctrine therein states that our salvation begins, continues, and is completed by the grace of God. It's not something that we would earn, achieve, or secure through any merit or power of our own. Now, before we go further, it's worth distinguishing the difference of sola gratia and sola fide. Yes, they are closely related, and yes, they are often spoken together, and they were formulated together along with sola scriptura, but they are not identical. Now, side note, I suspect, and this is honestly just an opinion of mine, that the difference between sola gratia and sola fide is more readily apparent to those within a Lutheran context, which is where these two doctrines were originally formulated, particularly the systematization of them by Theodore Angler about 100 years ago. So, sola gratia is the doctrine that relates to the cause of our salvation, which is grace, God's grace from above coming down into us. While sola fide is the doctrine related to how we receive that salvation, which is faith. We receive it in faith, which is something that we show out to other people. That's kind of a very 30,000-foot view of what faith is, to be fair. And I talked more in detail about it in my previous video, okay? So there's more to faith than just the outward expression. And like I said, go watch the video on sola fide if you want to get my understanding on that. Now, grace rightly understood is not only God's favor, it's that, but it's also his power to renew, to illuminate, to raise, and to heal. It's helpful here to distinguish grace as favor and grace as power. Grace is not merely just God's kind disposition toward us, but it's also the active working of God within the human soul, granting life where there was none, raising the dead, both spiritually dead as well as some cases, raising from physical death, healing the sick, calling sinners into communion, bringing the lost sheep back to the fold. Many of these metaphorical and rhetorical devices and concepts that are used to describe what exactly faith is. The Apostle Paul can very succinctly explain to us what faith is, particularly in his epistle to the Ephesians, where he states that by grace you have been saved through faith, that it's not your own doing. It's a gift of God. Now, this passage names both sola gratia and sola fide and places grace at the foundation. It's also worth noting that sola gratia specifically presupposes the theological idea of monergism, which means one work, God's work alone in the act of salvation. But the framework of sola gratia, in this framework, grace is not a response to human willingness. It's actually the opposite. It's what creates human willingness. The human willingness is actually a response to grace. Now, does this mean that our response and our repentance and good works don't matter? Far from it. Now, I already broke that down in the Sola Fide video, and it's worth restating that, our good works and our responses and our repentance, they matter. They are important. It's just that they are not the causes of our salvation, but they are just the effects of it. They are the fruits of the grace of God in your life, not the root of it. Furthermore, it's not like these concepts that I've explained were just invented by the Protestant reformers. It's not like Luther or Calvin or Cranmer just pulled them out of the backside. You see patristic writers such as St. Augustine of Hippo, St. John Chrysostom, St. Athanasius of Alexandria, and even Pope St. Gregory the Great. Yes, I did say Pope, as in the Bishop of Rome, as well as many other patristic sources who readily affirmed the primacy of grace over and above all these other aspects of the Christian faith. And by the way, this was nearly 1,000 years before the Reformation. The Reformers simply reasserted it against the backdrop of the late medieval system of the Roman Catholic Church that had in its judgment grace as something that was cooperative rather than foundational. Now, side notes, since we're talking about the late medieval system. The proliferation and the succession of Augustinian theology is what Protestantism owes its emergence to, since Protestantism did basically begin as a subset of Augustinian theology. But that's something that we can break down another day. In conclusion, sola gratia means that salvation does not begin with our desire for God, but with God's desire for us. It is not prompted by our effort, but initiated by His mercy. Grace precedes faith, grace enables faith, and grace carries us within the world. Have a good day.